I have some very ambitious objectives for today. And so I want to first just spend a moment and poll the audience and understand which of these objectives might be of most interest to you. So how many of you are really, really interested in synthesizing vertical convergence to predict artificial leadership? And how many of you are focused on that in your organizations? We have one person focused on that. How about, let me just kind of skip down the list a little bit, empowering human-computer probabilistic precision. Is that of great concern in your organizations? It seems no one's much interested in those. So as with any digital event, one must have a second released. So release 2.0 of my objectives is fairly simple. I'm going to very briefly, for those of you who may not know Hogan, talk about who we are, what we do, talk about personality assessment a bit and why focus on personality assessment, and talk about current trends in the digitization of personality assessment, some open questions, some description of where we are in terms of that methodology, that technology, and then talk a little bit about how you might go about evaluating assessments, whether they are more traditional assessments or they are new digital or big data driven kinds of assessments. Does that sound better than okay, yeah, a little more interest in those. Okay, well, very good. So who is Hogan Assessments? We are the premier personality assessment provider. We provide assessment-based solutions to help companies make decisions about people. And as Elena said, we've been around a little over 30 years and amassing data. So we were big data before big data was popular, simply because we are a very research and science-focused organization, and we've been amassing data for many years. Our assessments are designed to solve problems that are common to all organizations. That is, who might be the best hire, who might be the best leader, who's going to work most safely, who's going to have the longest tenure, those common problems that all organizations face. Our research archive has performance data for every job in the US economy and every job in the European economy. So we've done lots and lots of validation research over the years. We also create customized solutions because we are quite research-based. About a fourth of our employment base is research. It's focused on research. So I mentioned that we are personality assessment focused, and why? Why focus on personality? Well, one need to look no further than the political leaders who are in place today. I have to mention Trump in every talk I do. So Trump, Erdogan, Orban, Duterte, we could go on and on and on. That is a good example of why people are the most dangerous and consequential force on the planet. And personality psychology is about understanding those personalities and what their impact is on an organization. So we suggest that we should take the subject seriously. And part of that is taking the subject of measuring personality seriously. So that's why we believe it is an important area of focus for human resources and for organizations in general. So on to the digitalization of personality assessment. Primarily two key methods or technologies being used today. One of those is artificial intelligence, which obviously is teaching a computer to think like a human, only better. And machine learning, which is helping a computer to continuously learn and improve decision-making or predictions. In assessment, like life in general, new technological developments always drive economic growth. And the same is true in personality assessment. New technologies drive improvements and more efficiencies. Personality measurement's been around roughly since the 17th century, and in continuous improvement mode since about the 17th century. But with advancements in computing power and cost effectiveness in computing power, there are things we can do today that we certainly couldn't do 30 years ago when we started Hogan, but things that we couldn't do even 3 to 5 years ago. In terms of the analysis of large data sets. So there have been massive improvements, and those continue to be made, and it is a very promising area. However, does anyone know when the term artificial intelligence was coined? How new it is? How many think within the last 5 years? 50 years ago, over 50 years ago. Right? Over 50 years ago. In 1955, the term was coined. In 1957, an economist named Herbert Simon made a prediction that artificial intelligence was so promising that within 2 years, 10 years, a computer would be beating a human in chess, playing chess, right? This was 1957. It took 40 years for the computer to learn enough to beat a human in chess. So that is just a little warning that if we expect computers within a few years to be able to make better hiring decisions than the experts in this room with some traditional tools, that probably not a great bet. But let's see where we are. This is just an example of how this research tends to go. I'll give you a couple of quick examples. So we have a participant. The people we know, we've learned over the last few years that people leave digital footprints or digital crumbs when they go online, whether they're using social media or sending emails or whatever it might be, any kind of online behavior. So we gather this online behavior. We have the person complete a traditional self-report personality assessment and correlate those two and see, can we predict the personality assessment results from the digital crumbs. The I in the middle is we often also gather observer ratings. So who do I say you are? My description of your personality. And that way it allows us to see, are there connections between the digital footprints I leave, how other people who know me describe me, and how I allegedly describe myself on a self-report personality instrument. Does this make sense? This is sort of the core of this. So we can go on Facebook, for example, and scrape all of the likes that you have made and all of the dislikes and the people you follow and the companies you follow and all of those things, and look at how are those correlated with personality assessment results. Now, obviously, people in this room are not really interested in predicting results of a personality assessment. All you have to do is give your candidates one to understand what the result of that is, right? You're not interested in predicting that. You want to predict job performance or turnover or safety or leadership potential, right? We're not there yet. That's why the last symbol here is a question mark. This research is focused today on predicting results of traditional personality assessments. That's not very exciting stuff, frankly. And it's not shocking that there are correlations between my behavior online, my behavior on questionnaires, and my behavior with my friends. It's really not shocking. But that's where we are on this. There are, of course, other research methodologies going on. For example, some researchers have used phone call information. So if they found that if they had roughly 45 seconds of conversation from phone calls, could be from multiple phone calls even, 45 seconds, they could create algorithms that would predict outcomes on a personality assessment. The next step, of course, would be to try to predict job performance from that, tenure, safety, et cetera. We're not there yet. So we have results where we know we can reasonably accurately, not highly accurately, but reasonably accurately predict personality assessment results from digital footprints of various kinds or voice prints of various kinds. But we really want to predict performance, and we're not there yet. So I keep saying we're not there yet. The question is, where are we? Well, here's what we know. This is a summary from the academic literature on personality prediction. How many of you are familiar with the Big Five? So personality model essentially is the structure of how humans describe other humans. So we use it, and many researchers in this field use it as the fundamental model of what does personality mean? What's human personality all about? So we can predict self-reported, that is questionnaire, Big Five traits, and some self-reported other criteria, like if people say online, I'm a substance abuser, I have a health problem, those kinds of things, we can predict those with moderate accuracy. But remember that we are taking what the person does online and what they say online and showing that those are correlated. This is not shocking. This is not a shocking outcome, but that's where we are. Secondly, there's research showing that these self-reports and computer algorithms, predictions of personality are correlated, and that self-reports and peer ratings are correlated. There's not much overlap between those two, suggesting that computer algorithms are predicting some aspect of personality, but when real people talk about other people, they're talking about other things, by and large. So we have some clarity that needs to be found there. Those judgments are capturing different things. One practical concern is the final point here, and that is that today we have Facebook, Twitter, et cetera, WeChat. We can't compare data, we can't combine data from those different platforms, and that's a very practical concern with this research because A, not everybody's on Facebook, B, only about a third of Facebook users will allow their data to be scraped in the first place, so it's difficult to combine data and use this in a very general way. So what do we need to know? We need to know if artificial intelligence and machine learning models can actually predict the things you people are interested in, like job performance, like leadership potential, safety behavior, and so forth. We need to understand how to avoid bias. This has been a real issue in the press lately. Some of the big Silicon Valley firms who sort of started all of this big data analytics have recently said they're going to stop using them for certain purposes simply because they can't eliminate the bias. And particularly in employment, of course, bias is a very, very large concern. So where's the market? We just saw a lot of great research about this, so I'm not going to belabor this. There's a lot of interest in this. There's a little bit of usage. Actually, I saw a study done in the UK the other day that showed that about 1% of firms are actually trying to use artificial intelligence or machine learning applications for employment decisions. So the usage, the practical application is still probably a long ways away. I know I'm running short on time.
5 minutes.
5 minutes? Very good. So I'll be quick. One of the arguments that is often made for why it is so critical for us in the next generation of assessment to move to artificial intelligence and machine learning is this notion of efficiency. We need more efficient ways to measure personality and make predictions about workplace behavior. This is one of the better pieces of academic research published in the Journal of Applied Psychology, which is the premier applied psychology journal globally. This was focused on the issue of efficiency. Now, the starting place is most well-developed, well-researched traditional measures of personality, which you can take on your, you can complete on your cell phone today, take roughly 15 minutes to complete. So to gain efficiencies means we really have to collapse to a very short assessment. What they found was, we often hear, and you probably have heard this in your organizations, that millennials especially will not sit still for 15 minutes to complete a personality assessment. But in fact, the researchers found that within the first 10 minutes or so, most of the dropout happens. The people who drop out are also the least qualified. And the best qualified candidates are the ones who actually complete the assessment. From 10 minutes to about 200 minutes, the drop-off is around 1 to 2%. So it doesn't actually seem to be true that people will no longer stand for a 15-minute assessment, especially if they want to get a job out of it. They're willing to invest a little bit, right? So a couple of words about traditional personality assessment. And what I mean by traditional personality assessment is psychometric assessment supported by research. We've done about 1,100 validity studies over the years and published about half of those, so the data are readily available, so you don't have to take my word for this. But traditional personality assessments can predict leadership effectiveness and do so quite well. Can predict leadership personality predicts employee engagement. So once you have measured personality effectively, you can measure and predict other things that are important to your organizations. There's great research in the field of economics. Psychology hasn't caught up with this, but in economics, using CEO personality to predict firm financial performance. And CEO personality has been found to be the most predictive element, construct of firm financial performance aside from the industry that firm is doing business in. So it is a very powerful predictor, predicting turnover, accident proneness, et cetera, et cetera. So we can predict many things today. Here are some open questions for tomorrow. What aspects do machine learning, artificial intelligence algorithms actually predict? We're getting there, but we're a ways off from answering that question. What useful outcomes do they predict? There's no published research showing those results today, as like zero. Will they predict those better than traditional assessments? It's an open question because there's no published data. Will they do so fairly? This is a big, big question. Finally, I want to, you're keeping time. How many minutes do I have? One. Wow. Okay. So, well, I would just leave you with this then. I think these four elements might be useful for you, whether you are trying to evaluate a traditional personality assessment or machine learning, artificial intelligence, et cetera. And there are trade-offs between these four elements, obviously. Some people say, well, if we could get a 5-minute assessment where we just can scrape some data off someone's Facebook page, we're willing to take lower accuracy. I don't know that that's a good trade-off, but some people are. Or we can scrape Facebook for free, or we can scrape employee emails for free or employee phone calls for free. So we get very low cost. And if we get less prediction, we get what we pay for, right? What I would leave you in fairness, I could spend an hour on fairness, so I won't even start there. That is, how will employees feel about you taking their phone call voice data or taking their email content and analyzing it and making employment decisions based on that? I think we're a long ways from that being acceptable, and I think that's a great thing. I think GDPR is going to influence all the rest of the planet in a really positive way on this. So I would just leave you with that. Consider the total cost of ownership. Don't be persuaded by shiny objects because fundamentally what you want to do is make better predictions about the things that are important for your business results. That's the business you folks are in. So ultimately consider all of the trade-offs.